Hello, I'm one of your hosts, Austin Cummings.
And I'm Matt Schultz.
Woo, and thank you for tuning in to another Nintendo podcast. This is episode 0.6, the one where Matt went to PAX.
Yes, it was awesome. Can't wait to talk about it.
Very cool. Well, that's the show. Matt, we're going to start off the episode as we always do. Don't fact check us on that one with a little confessional. What have you been buying?
Right. I think I may have mentioned this last time, I guess.
Oh.
As you all know, I'm the frugal gamer here on the show.
Sure. Well, but, not hard to do in comparison.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we need to do a video show just showing off our, various collections.
Absolutely not. That is the come to Jesus moment I cannot possibly put up with. That kind of thing would just shock me to my very core.
Right.
The thing that people have been telling me for all these years may put to video form for the record. I cannot have this type of that. What have you been buying? What'd you buy?
Well, I did officially get my sweet Octoling headphones, which means that I
you did the pre-order.
Finally pre-ordered it.
I did it as well, and in fact, we're going to talk about Splatoon a little bit in the episode, but that is very cool. That is neat they have that. I loved when they did it for Mario Kart 8, when it was like, hey, you want those Yoshi and Shy Guy colors? Like, right. Today. But it's like you get something right then, which is neat. You know, Matt and I were talking off air about God of War, not a Nintendo game, which is okay and fine,
maybe
but that just has received really excellent reviews, and anyway, so I was motivated to pre-order it, which I do some of the time for some of these titles, and anyway, but it is, when you do that, you're still waiting. Sometimes you get a theme or something like that on PlayStation, but in the case of the few Mario-related and Splatoon now, Nintendo pieces of DLC, it is so cool to get that immediate thing. Even they did that for Pokken Tournament, where if you pre-order the Fight Pack, although you're going to be waiting for the two characters and the support characters, you right away were like, oh, new customization for the avatars, and that is really neat.
It's really smart the way Nintendo's doing that, right? Because you log in, and you may have seen it, you may have not seen it, but suddenly you start to see, if you're an avid Splatoon player or going on enough, you can recognize that, hey, those are Something's new headphones. That's a new gear.
Right.
Like, there's an Octoling on that.
No, it is very cool. And it is cool also the fact that the DLC will include the Octoling characters,
right.
You know? Because that's just another way that it does kind of organically place it into it. And it's really the same thing for when I was playing Mario Kart 8 back on the Wii U, and Link came out. And then online, there was all these great posts or tweets of people and Vines where it's a match, and it's there are 12 Links on the stage. Everyone has chosen Link. But it is a great way of being wait a minute, I don't have that character. Same thing goes for Smash. It's just a way of, I was playing actually 3DS Smash with a buddy recently who's been really getting into
throwback.
3DS. I know. But it's so good, so very good. And he did not have the DLC characters. And he's like, what? And he loves Bayonetta. And he's like, Bayonetta's in this? Because he wouldn't really know by the game, but by playing, then he went and bought those characters. And we played it, and I'm like, oh, it's on the clock tower stage. It's like that, which is a cool way of showing that stuff off and giving those rewards. Specifically, the ones in the case of Splatoon where you get it beforehand. I think that is really neat. Okay, well, good purchase. Let me tell you what I've been buying quite a bit. But the thing I've really been stuck on recently is I'm very excited about Dragon Quest XI, which as of now is not coming to a Nintendo platform in the West, but I've really been enjoying the series. And I was now I'm on this mission to collect all of there were Dragon Quest 4 through 6 came out on the DS, but are among the more expensive DS games, particularly the 6th one. And so I've been really on the fun of the hunt, which has gotten me many times. That kick, that thrill, just logging. I was doing it just a moment ago, but on kind of the Amiibo days, but which have never truly left us. But in the case of this, Dragon Quest 6, on going on eBay and things like that to get a copy of it. Anyway, I've been kind of piecing together the Dragon Quest games, and it's been very exciting. I've been really enjoying that. And quick shout out to the Dragon Quest. This is now, we'll move into the next segment on the what have you been your salvations? The week? What you been playing? The Dragon Quest been playing a ton of that, especially on. It is really impressive. Square is kind of Square Enix has a bit of a mixed history with the iOS ports of their games, but for instance, Chrono Trigger, which is going to get a revamp, but had some really dreadful graphics and menus when it came to iOS. Same thing goes for Final Fantasy VI. It really washes out the art for these really terrible HD assets that remove the pixel art, but that's part of the beauty and the stand the testament of time that all these Super Nintendo games have that they don't seem to really understand. In any event, they're making good on it for Chrono Trigger, but they're fairly untouched for Dragon Quest, and you can actually play 1 through 6 on the phone. And they're very good. It controls really simply. It's a turn-based game, so you're not really, struggling to do quick motions without buttons on the phone. and the games even have the Super Nintendo graphics on the games that had come out on the NES or the Famicom. For Dragon Warrior, they all have the updated visuals, and that it plays like in the portrait mode, so it's easy to play just with one hand, so I kind of flip between it and do a little grinding. So that's been really something I've enjoyed quite a bit. That's kind of been my thing of the week. So fun. That's just a little
my salvation, I think. So I was at PAX, so I was traveling. I'll talk about this later, but I made the mistake of not bringing my 3DS, so I was not. I was, if you've are a listener of the show.
Right, it's dangerous to go alone.
It's so dangerous to go without your 3DS, especially to a convention, especially a gaming convention. But I have more thoughts on this particular thing in the future, which we'll talk about at the end of this podcast. But I
wonder how many of these things we're claiming we're going to talk about will we ever get to. Right. I wonder if it's going to be the case we've now trickled all these things and just never again. Right. Never the Splatoon DLC, which I'm basically already talking about. That's what I'm talking about now.
Waiting, we got to keep them around.
Right. Oh, the hook. I want it.
Got to be there for that.
Don't hit that forward 15 seconds button to try to scrub forward and get the sweet details on 3DS. We know. Don't skip all the ads. That'll definitely be in the show at some point. But yes, 3DS.
Right. Continue. So didn't have that on me, so I couldn't continue in my Fire Emblem conquest, if you will.
Ooh, yes, please.
But I did put a ton of time into SteamWorld Dig 2. And it was actually pretty great because I actually got to meet some of the developers for that whole franchise in person.
That is really cool.
So that was super fun. Still playing that. I actually talked to them about it. I'm like, I'm playing through your game right now, and I'm so upset I waited this long. But I've just been really getting into the exploration of the game. And, I mean, if you're listening to this and don't have that game, it's definitely a top 10 on Switch. At least
if I had what might be a fun segment to do at some point is to say, like, what are the must-haves for the Switch, or, like, all must-haves for 3DS, things like that. And I would easily put, especially in the kind of indie scene, SteamWorld Dig is a must-have. That's an easy recommendation, really, to anyone, something like that, and Stardew or Celeste, possibly. But really, that one's a standout. That's tough because that game came out at the exact same time as Metroid, Samus Returns, and it was hard. I love Metroid. It's one of my favorite series. I often feel that my favorite series for Nintendo overall are, and I love doing favorites in general. We're going to do a lot of lists, but my favorite series are Zelda, Metroid, and Fire Emblem. And so I have a big love for Metroid. I was so excited to have it come back in 2D form. I loved 3DS. I even bought the Samus Returns, the new 3DS XL that has our beautiful bounty hunter lady on the front, in addition to our squishy amiibo and whatnot. But
that cool reddish orange yellow.
Oh god, it's so nice. And it's yellow on the bottom. It has like kind of the grid that's like the legs. Woo, it's nice. In any event, though, I was playing it today. So it was worth it. I do not feel guilty about it. I needed that thing. In any event, it came out at the exact same time as SteamWorld Dig 2, and though I love Metroid, it was hard even to top SteamWorld Dig because it just looks great, and the loop is so good, and it's almost perfect for on the go in a way where, even though Samus Returns is based on a Game Boy game that was made to be played in shorter segments, the way in which it breaks up kind of the hunt for the Metroids, the SteamWorld Dig it was a really hard game to step away from for that. So, although I ultimately Metroid boy through and through, but it's really an excellent game. And if you want to hear more from the developers, Retronauts, I believe, and also NVC have had those developers on.
Yeah, super great interviews. Super fun.
Just their inspirations and what they do and how they've kind of done their world building and how the kind of heist games are kind of fit into that and what they kind of envision for the future of the franchise in broad strokes. But I've really enjoyed listening to them.
Right.
Very cool.
Right. In fact, it was after listening to one of those podcasts that I was like, let me check. Maybe now I'll do it. And then I saw the sale and was like, this is like perfect timing. So yeah.
Did it.
Anyways,
played us like a dang fiddle. Well, that is very cool. Okay, we'll talk more about that allegedly, but quickly, some corrections. We are, we're not good, and so we made a couple mistakes last time. We want to address, one of which is called out by our dear listener. But first off, the Switch and Wii U sales. I think we kind of flirted between not being 100% confident as to at what point did the Switch outsell, or did it outsell internationally or nationally. In any event, in an article I'm looking here at Engadget, this is back in January of 2018, they did post saying the Wii U had sold 13.56 million units, while the Switch had hit after the holidays 14.86 million. So at that point, they were neck and neck, but the Switch had broken ahead. So attaboy Switch and Wii U, you'll be remembered fondly. You know what's something I find myself up against? I do enjoy playing like the occasional Wii game, and this is back to my Dragon Quest thing, but there's a Dragon Quest game for the Wii, which isn't like a classic, but I'm like, oh, it'd be kind of fun to pick up. And I do enjoy, I was playing some Rogue Leader recently, I was enjoying that series and the Factor 5 interviews, and I was like, oh, I'll play this again. And the Wii is great to play it because it has the GameCube backwards compatibility, and you can play like the progressive scan if you have the cables that have 480p, the component cables, which is all fun. In any event, though, now I'm in this situation because I did my system transfer from the Wii to the Wii U back in the day, but like and where the Wii is like in the shell within the Wii U. Little Pikmin, love them. They're hard at work, and I gotta respect that. But but now it's like I just want to play things on the Wii because it's just a little simpler. It's like my Wii U's in a box at the moment because I had moved, and it's like it's not just getting that thing plugged in. I also have like there's like the little stand, and there's also the IR sensor because you need that just like the Wii, and there's also the charger for the for the actual tablet, and it's just a lot of components. Yeah, which is why it only sold 13.56 million units. So correction on that. Also correction, we were talking about the Super Mario Odyssey DLC, and one of the things we're talking about were the outfits, and we're momentarily stumped. And the Satellaview
got the baseball one.
We got the baseball one, no problem. We recognize that right away. That's of course a reference to actually that would be something Nintendo, of course, a long history of loving baseball, and Nintendo used to own the Mariners, as we may recall.
Right, they're still part owners, just not full or not major owners like they used to be.
And I remember when that happened that was like a real contentious moment for Nintendo, I believe, in the 90s, because people were like, hey, the whole thing with Nintendo is they're trying to frame it like a toy. There was some type of a general phobia as of thieves or American excellence and whether or not we were going to be a major player in technology and things like that. And so that was a big consideration for these gaming companies for a long time, was to try to like it's a toy, like things of that nature, and have names that were like vaguely didn't mean anything, like in the case of Nintendo, and the way in which it was positioned. In any event, but then they bought the Mariners, and it was kind of a big hullabaloo for a hot moment. It was cool they had that. That was such a neat thing, especially because they're such a Washington company in a way.
Right. I mean, Nintendo had a huge part in bringing the now infamous Ichiro to baseball in the United States. As all of our viewers and myself know very well, Ichiro Suzuki, I believe we called him. Ichiro Suzuki,
the Suze,
who's back on the Mariners now. But Nintendo president of at the time, I mean, was kind of instrumental in getting him.
Howard, yes, was that he? Anyway, continue.
No,
I don't want to do another correction.
Right,
so
right. It definitely was a decade ago. Someone can correct me on that officially, but it was around 10.
Matt, I think there's a chance that no one will be able to.
Right.
I think we can steer clear on this. Cool. I think honestly, make up whatever you want. Do you remember when Miyamoto came out there and threw the first pitch for every game?
Yeah.
Correct us. Well, the Satellaview, to get back on that, one of the outfits, Mario looks like a delightful robot astronaut man. And don't correct me on that. And basically, the color scheme is inspired by the Satellaview, which was an accessory for released in Japan in 1995. But it was basically a way in which a peripheral for the Super Famicom, so our Super Nintendo, as if we were to have had it. And it was basically, which is very neat, it was a way to connect to the internet and basically using a satellite signal download some content, which was neat. And this is the thing that spawned, I believe, watch me be wrong, the Zelda BS and things like that, where it was like for A Link to the Past, it was like extra, basically bonus content you could download and try out with Zelda, which is like such a cool piece of history that cannot be revisited at all. I'm trying to now really rapidly try to confirm that, but I'm pretty sure that this is the thing that spawned BS Zelda, which is cool. It's kind of one of those CDI game Zelda things where I'm like, oh, I've beaten every Zelda game, and then in my mind I'm like, but not the CDI ones, and neither have I, of course, played BS Zelda. There isn't really means to do it now, but very cool on that for the BS being the broadcast satellite. So yes, that is correct. Okay, well, very cool on that. Thank you for the corrections. And speaking of the corrections, we here on the show, Matt, are nothing without our fans. And nothing without our fan. And as such, we want to do our due diligence, check in with our number one fan, King D, not the dandy, King D. And
King
just
D.
King D. So he was away for a little bit,
Shout
and we
out.
don't know why. Big shout out to that. And I don't know why he was gone, and I can't. And we understand it. But we also we can be sympathetic because now he's back and he's in full force. So King D left a big comment, and I think I want to briefly run through a few of the things he said because it's kind of a fun back and forth. And if anything, he's basically the third host at this point. So he was the one who brought up the Switch outselling.
He's out in the
Wii
field.
U.
He's a correspondent.
Yeah, exactly. He's coming to the field content. He's excited for Aces, and he brings up, I hope Strikers comes to Switch. I would love it if Mario Strikers came to Switch. Did you play Mario Strikers Charged?
Loved both of them. I played both of those games tirelessly.
I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, Strikers Charged very hard. At least like the challenge things. This is my
Oh my
feeling.
god, because you could play that online, and people were just wrecking
you absolutely could, and it was so fun. I played Waluigi, the Weege, and he like had his special move because everyone had their special moves, which is great. I love a good special move, even when it's totally unbalanced.
Right.
Same thing goes for the Smash Balls. I will always be a defender of that in Smash Bros. But the Waluigi. He had like this move, his special move, where vines would appear behind him where he was running, and you could like lay these really devious traps around your goal or like into the other person's goal area. So fun. I would love that to come back. I know that there was like the Super Mario 3DS, some sports mix or whatever recently. I don't believe there was soccer on there. Do you recall?
I don't think Strikers has not made a comeback. I mean,
certainly
they're
not
definitely,
in any form
but I know what you're saying. Like it has, like there's been, I think there's probably like a soccer. I definitely know there's been soccer in those like Mario and Sonic go to the Olympic Games.
Right, that's good.
But
such a fascinating little run.
I don't know. We definitely
it has not come back in its true form. And you know what's a fun little detail that's really important is that here at home downstairs I actually have a cardboard standee of Super Mario, which is
all
because
the
I
more
worked
reason
for
why
a spell.
you need to do a video of your collection. The fans want it. They're demanding it.
That's true. I know. And then I'll post it, and my parents will be like, "This is why we know you have a problem." And then I'll have to like bring things out because now they're all like, some of them are kind of squirreled away underneath things to try to hide it. Okay, the rest of some other highlights from King D. He says regarding Awakening, he correctly cites Tarsha as being the best waifu, but Owain the best boy. And honestly, Owain is a delightful, delicious thick boy, and he is really a great one too. He is also a character in Fire Emblem Heroes that can be played with a small downloadable fee. But Owain, he's a good one. And let's see, he's enjoying Detective Pikachu. And he loves Kirby, and he's loving Star Allies, which I really have not played much more of, so my apologies on that, because I've been very into the Dragon Quest, which King D himself also cites as something he enjoyed with Dragon Quest 9, which was on the DS, and again, was the last mainline Dragon Quest game to make it to the United States, so it's a long time coming. I will say this regarding, once more, onto Dragon Quest. And the thing I'm going to cite, he also, now I'm noticing, also said this is a Teleview thing. So, also, you got us there again, King D. So, we're at least 2 for 2. The thing I was going to say is for Dragon Quest, I would love it. It's not coming to 3DS, as we know. But Nintendo was instrumental in bringing 7 and 8 to the West. And they carried a big portion, as I understand it, of the work localizing and porting it on to make the 3DS versions. I'm sure they sold super terribly, particularly because they were like late 2016 games on the 3DS. But it would be really awesome to see Dragon Quest XI come to the 3DS, brought over by Nintendo, if they don't have plans for it already. Perhaps their plan is to make that the Switch version. Maybe that's why they've advertised that the Switch version is going to come much, much later, quote unquote. But it would be really awesome to see that. It kind of makes me yearn for the days of the Operation Rainfall back in the day, where we got Xenoblade Chronicles and Pandora Tower and Lost Story, because or Last Story. Oh no! Well, because of that fan campaign,
we're just going to use that.
It would be right anytime.
For mistakes.
Exactly. If for really anything, maybe most of the shows is going to be a series of running Pikas, except for maybe the song or the intro, which we had to record twice because I goofed it up. Anyway, it would be awesome to see some of a fan poll, but the community on Reddit for Dragon Quest, where I feel like something like that would happen, is quiet. They're a sleepy bunch. A delightful crew, but certainly few. Anyway, that's my end of the Dragon Quest update, and also thank you, King D, as always, for really a lovely response, and bring more of it because we enjoy reading it and talking about it. Truly, it's a treat.
Thank you, Matt, King D.
We're moving on now to Big N.
Big N news.
And this time we have a collection of things for us. And of those items, I have counted them out, utilizing my master's in biomedical engineering, to 6 items. So we have 6 items to go for. Matt, take us through what is topic 1 in Big N in the news this week.
Right. So actually, this is pretty like recent. Like in the last few hours. Shinya Takahashi.
There we go.
Recently was at I think the like British like Game Awards or something in the UK. Super sophisticated podcast here.
Pika!
But there's a rough translation out there right now about
they have the British Game Awards, right? It's the BJs.
They're constantly doing research and development on a new system, which is not a big surprise, but it is a confirmation that like yes, Nintendo is looking into like new avenues or new like we've gotten so many different consoles. Like clearly they're still doing some R&D on these like a different way of playing as they always do, which is when we first talked about it we're like, why? Switch is great.
Right.
Make Switch better. Make Switch the best possible portable home console you can make,
it's very true. It's one of those things where I think this is always the topic because it's like, of course
once
the system is out, they have to start working on the next thing, and the technology,
business.
Of course, and the technology is constantly evolving and at a rapid and exponential pace, such that things of the next year outpace
things become more cost effective for Nintendo.
Exactly, and so it only makes sense for them to start experimenting with that for the next thing. Makes total sense. But there was a story on March 1st by the Wall Street Journal, and it was saying that Nintendo is to hold off on a Switch 2.0.
Right.
And it's instead going to kind of gear more towards peripherals and things like that, which we know is like the Labo bit. But that kind of started a lot of stories.
Well, actually, I think so. This is a good segue into a second bit of news that we've got. I'm skipping for a second, but this was in Bloomberg, specifically Bloomberg Technology, where Nintendo is reported looking to team up with a group called the VC Fund to basically find
virtual console, please. Yes, please.
New ways of basically working with the Switch technology. Like, right, Labo is one of these ideas of like Nintendo saying, "Hey, this isn't just a game console. This is something, where we can have." Right. Peak of my coughs.
That's right.
Well, it's a new way to interact and engage with the Switch, and I think that's going to be really interesting to talk about and explore in the coming months here. But they're basically reaching out to Silicon Valley startups to see what kinds of things they can do or add on to the Switch via peripherals. So they're seeking creative ideas, according to the article here. Creative ideas that may lead to new gaming experiences for the Switch and help the device maintain strong sales momentum. So, constantly engaging its the folks who have it, which are a lot of people now, are going to continue to be a lot of people who probably owned Wii's at some point, who now own Switches.
Yeah, that is interesting, and it kind of piggybacks off that original Wall Street Journal story, because in that they cite, hey, the thing we want to focus on, if we are to focus on anything, is a level of focusing on like expanding out peripherals, things like that, and Labo, things that use the system in creative ways. And we know that Switch has that USB-C functionality. We did talk about the bricking last week, so questionable a bit on the charging side of things, but it does open it as far as it powering other devices, or at least interfacing with them. A lot of branches that the proprietary connections haven't really had. Nintendo's always experimented a bit with stuff like that. They've always wanted that blue ocean strategy of tapping into a new market, but the fact that they're a little more online this time. They have connection technology, which is pretty mainstream. Those are just elements that help push them in directions where it's not the walled garden they typically played in, which is, for everyone's benefit, of course, whenever they're able to branch out a little bit.
The company, I guess, is officially called, it's a venture capital company called Scrum Ventures.
Okay, I'm listening.
And so,
that sounds legit enough to me.
Yep, and in the Bay Area. Also, basically where you find these types of tech organizations anyway. So we're going to move on from there.
Yeah, but that is a neat one. Okay, let's go to the next story. But thank you for briefing us on that one. The next thing we want to talk about was You had cited for us Banner Saga 3, which we talked about a couple weeks ago, or when we were going over the Indie announcements. The trilogy will be coming, but Banner Saga 3 specifically, July 24th. And what is interesting for me for the Switch release is, does that mean we're possibly going to get the first two, which they've said will come in a collection?
Right.
And that there is already an announced collection of the trilogy, at least on PlayStation and Xbox, which you can pre-order starting, I believe, today, and which is very cool. So I'm very hopeful, especially because there is a persistent story between those games.
Right.
That
and Nintendo has confirmed we are getting 1 and 2.
Right.
But it's just coming. A matter of is it next month? Is it they're gonna announce it at E3 and be like, you can download it now.
Right. And the way that Nintendo's been doing these things, especially with these kind of out of nowhere directs that then have announcements for the real short term. I wouldn't be surprised if they did do something like that. I think particularly, a lot of people are still banking on Fire Emblem. I keep seeing this. I was on Resetra.com and Reset Era for everyone else, but I'm pretty sure it's Resetra. In any event, I was on there and people were talking about kind of their most anticipated games, and I kept seeing Fire Emblem appear, which is so cool. People are excited about it, but I do feel it's been so quiet that it makes me a little skeptical. Nintendo, though, is yet to delay anything, but if they haven't truly announced the game, I don't think it would be fair to hold it to them as like a real delay of Fire Emblem. But
they haven't said
in any event, I think it's smart to give a little bit of a wide berth to Fire Emblem, and so trying to get out Banner Saga 1 and 2. And, in the first half of the year, I think it'd be really smart. So it'd be great if it come out before June and then July 24th for the third. Next thing, there have been some articles which have been neat that have been shared by Yacht Club Games regarding Shovel Knight's sales. Do you want to share us a little bit about that, Matt?
Yeah, don't know too much about the actual sales numbers, but the biggest thing coming out is that, and this is not necessarily unique to Yacht Club, right? This is something that we've seen a lot, but basically their games are selling fastest and best on Switch.
I believe it's already sold 2 million units is what I had read, which is phenomenal. That's another game I would put on there as a must buy.
Right.
Be sold on the system.
Well,
and go ahead.
Well, this is the thing. Right? I was going around PAX and I was seeing all these great games, and I would straight up ask developers like, "Is this coming to Switch?" And I had people around me very interested in that response or the answer to this question.
Right.
And you would see
it's so cool. It's like the question we talked about, Into the Breach, that game by the guys who made FTL, and that looks awesome. Right. It's a PC only game, and I want to play it on the Switch. I'm not a computer person. I love turn-based games.
Right.
And
so much great opportunity.
Just so right for it. Exactly.
And actually, the places that did have Switch games, they would have a Switch controller, and then most likely either like Xbox or a PlayStation controller and like nearby, depending on what console they were using for the demo. The line for the Switch controller always longer. And people would be like, "No, I don't want to play it on the PlayStation 4."
And that is also part of what I will talk about with my PAX impressions, having not been, but just as someone, the layman observing it, is that type of general consensus. We should just talk a little bit, I guess, about these things as they're relevant. But for my PAX impressions, the one thing I want to mention now is that Wolfenstein and Dark Souls, those are two games that were really Wolfenstein 2 for the Switch that were on display at PAX, and that was a lot of discussion coming out of it. How do they look? How do they compare to the other consoles? When you play something on the Switch, you are sacrificing a level of graphical fidelity and power that allows for a higher frame rate that you would be receiving on other consoles, even ignoring the PC side of the equation, where you're basically playing things at a frame rate that is wholly dependent on your rig, so you can really take it right to the moon. But in the case of the Switch, people I'm excited for Dark Souls, but I'm excited for playing it on the Switch because I want to play it on the go. I know it's a game I'm going to have to practice at, and the idea of practicing it on the go makes it be like, okay, I know it's not going to look quite as nice, and I know it'll be running at a hopefully locked 30, opposed to the 60 of the remaster on the consoles, and I'll be paying the same price, but the concept of taking it with me totally outweighs, plus the magic of the Switch still has not,
faded. It's
diminished at all. Yeah, like playing Kirby, even Star Allies, a game that does look really fantastic in a way. And I can't recall if I said this last time. King D, chime in. Just kidding. This for this, but was that he's our fact checker. But the fact that the new Super Mario Bros. Games have not really evolved visually. They did not evolve throughout their 4 iterations. Whereas Star Allies is interesting because it is a game that is simple and is similar to other Kirby games before it, mechanically in many respects. So there's some twists, so that is good too. But the game is not a visual departure in the same way that the Rainbow Curse or things like that, Epic Yarn were. However, the like sheen and polish of the game looks phenomenal, especially on the Switch, in a way that New Super Mario Bros. Looks a little bland, in my opinion, a little plastic. Whereas it just like is so rich in Kirby, the layering and light effects, and all
it
the
makes you excited to see another new Super Mario Brothers type.
I would totally play one for sure, but it's like Kirby does revisit the same formula a little bit in the same way that New Super Mario Bros. Does for Mario, but Kirby does it with this level of graphical fidelity and detail that might not be that of the PS4 Pro or PC or what have you, the X, but it does manage to provide that. And then it's the magic of the Switch and picking it up out of the dock where it's like, I cannot believe I'm taking this with me on the go. Every time I go from the handheld to dock mode back and forth. So
when you're playing it on that smaller screen, man, it just pops.
It looks great too. Yeah. Absolutely. It pops in a way that, as I love the 3DS, but the screens just do not. They refuse to pop. And it's so nice, the screen on the Switch.
So there was one last announcement, right? Or one best thing in the news, and it wasn't dropped at PAX.
Oh yes, there is. So the thing I wanted to mention was Spyro, and Spyro. And do you have any connection to the Spyro, the dragon, or his delightful dragonfly friend, or any of the cast of characters? I believe there's a tiger furry that wears pants and maybe has a bow and arrow or something like
that. My good friend and neighbor growing up had a PlayStation. I grew up with Nintendo in my house, and that was it. We never had a PlayStation, so we'd go over there and play, but probably not as many fond memories as you. But I was happy to see it announced, and I knew there was a lot of people around me who were freaking out.
Yeah, it is really exciting. Really interesting backstory for myself, but I did not have a Nintendo console in my house growing up. I did the Game Boy Pocket, which was my first real piece of gaming hardware I had as a young man, but the young boy. But then the PlayStation was the first actual console that I had, so I played quite a bit of Crash and Spyro growing up, whereas although my neighbor had every console, and I spent a lot of time with him, so I had this nice knowledge of everything, I felt, and still feel. But the thing I had was PlayStation, and so I had a great connection with Spyro, and I really clicked, but really, truly do have a great affection for this series in a similar way I have for Crash. I'm a little more passionate about Crash, but Spyro does, it'll be interesting to see how they play, because revisiting Crash in the collection that came out for PlayStation is coming out for Switch, and I know was at PAX. It's such a game of a totally different time, because not only is it like a platformer, and those are, became especially rare in the early aughts and kind of have had a resurgence with the indie game movement in the more recent decade. But those games, particularly like the way they use 3D space, is just so experimental. It's so primitive by today's standards, in the same way that like Croc was, or other 3D platformers of the time that weren't Mario, or even Mario to many respects, didn't really find his footing so much until you get a little further. But in any event, those types of play spaces and large areas and ways in which you explore and glide, it's like very clunky and paced awkwardly, but it is like this fascinating relic, and it's cool it's coming back, and it's by the Toys for Bob, same people who did Skylanders, and it's cool to see that company pivot, because I did not ever play Skylanders, not something I got into, but I could see the appeal, especially if I had children, and the level of attention to detail in those games I always just heard were really impressive. Like, it was more than just like an action figure collectathon. It was like you really like the game for fun, and mechanically they were simple, but like exciting to explore the areas and unlock new things, particularly with the interaction with the characters, or the figures, and it's cool because Spyro, when Skylanders of course first started, it was Spyro the Dragon and Skylanders or what have you. He had top billing, and he removed that because Skylanders became the brand. But it's cool to see them focusing on the Spyro character, and it does make me interested to see if they would, Toys for Bob, herald another Spyro game. This collection is the trilogy from PlayStation. Those are really the great games, and like Crash, it kind of was out. Different developers took hold, or maybe designers. Crash, definitely different developers. Naughty Dog no longer worked on it after Crash Team Racing. But for Spyro's case, I would not say it has the same quite developer pedigree, but it has a similar level of affection, and it would be cool to see them do this. And the reason why this very long-winded little spiel is making it on our another Nintendo podcast is that it came up on the Nintendo UK store that Spyro was announced and coming to Switch. And so everyone's like, great, it's coming. And they're like, oh, no, it's not. But the way in which the developer and Activision publisher have dealt with the questioning has been taking it from a bit of a level of being like, we have nothing to announce at this time type thing.
Right.
Apart from the flat no, which I believe is also how the Trump campaign has responded to Stormy Daniels. And so the kind of with that in mind, though, it feels like a little bit of a telling moment. And so it would be neat. It would just be another neat thing. Same way with Crash. It'd be cool to have it on there.
Yep.
And there was Crash on the GBA back in the day, which I had, and it was very bad. I think it was like Year of the Dragon or Year of the Flame or something, and it had like a really rough isometric view, and it was like one of those, you'd like glide into the distance, be like, I'm definitely going to make it on the platform. You'd be like under it. You'd be like, how could I ever tell?
Right.
But God bless it, I put a lot of hours into that thing. Anyway, good times. Bring it on back. One last thing I want to mention, though, on the news before we leave it. I think this is the sixth item.
Okay.
The Splatfest results. We talked about a little bit last week.
Baseball.
But baseball versus soccer. Baseball won. And I have to say this, and we'll keep it brief. We already talked about Splatoon. But it is cool to me, in the case of Splatoon, that for these Splatfests, they're so close every time. It's amazing.
Right,
like,
so you're talking
they really
about
have. It's really an art by
Austin's upset.
the percentage.
I'm
upset because soccer didn't win, and I'm in Portland, and we got the Timbers, baby. Roll on, you Timbers! Not what we say, but we have
Roll
the
on,
text
you
chant. We're talking.
Timbers. Did you go to Cal Berkeley?
Right. You know what? That's good because that's why I'm getting it from, because my extensive sports knowledge, but also my mother went to Cal. But it is great that Nintendo has managed to choose these topics that are like just so tightly divided. It does make it interesting, and I do like that. The way it broke down was 60-40 in favor of soccer for the votes.
Right, which is how 51, I thought it would play out in terms of votes. I'm like, and usually where the vote goes, the win goes for whatever. Like, that's what I've always...
Some of the time. But I feel like didn't Ketchup win initially the votes and then got worked?
Right, Mayonnaise just showed up for the fight. That was what happened.
Yeah, I wonder if there might be some kind of like underlying truth to that, where it's like, if the masses go for a thing, they might be like generally...
You're probably
less hardcore.
Right.
And there's like more of them to crush. So if like a really niche group, because I do actually really like the way in which the solo matches 51-49 in favor of baseball, and the same thing goes for teams. So it was 2-1 overall categories going to baseball. So baseball is the better sport.
I just know that every time I'm in Splatfest, and I consider myself a pretty I'm an above average Splatoon player.
Right.
But that's so I'm sitting at like maybe a B rank, like on average. Occasionally in the A's.
Right.
I definitely go into these Splatfests contributing nothing. Like we feel like my team is constantly losing, and I'm like, there's no way baseball's gonna win.
Right.
And then like I find out later that these teams I'm on end up winning, and I'm like, all I did was make it harder for us to win. Like,
yeah, I'm so sorry for what I've done. No, it's so true.
I will take the Sea Slugs.
I will say this. Thank you. I'll collect my winnings now. I will say I did participate in this one, and on Team Soccer with a couple of my buddies, one of which was new to the Switch, and my friend and I recommended Splatoon, and we all went over to his house and played, and it was fun. But it does drive home, how great Splatoon is, and the amount of content that's come between now and the last time I played. When you talk to Sheldon, or whatever, that's his name, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes? When you're talking about the weapons, there's a button you can even hit to say, like, hurry up, and he'll, like, rapid fire through all the announcements, which is neat. It's so cool the way in which the game continues to grow, and the Splatfest, and even the way Pearl and Marina's dialogue is so funny, and, like, I just want to read all of it. I don't want to skip really any of it, but that's so awesome. But it also highlights what is still an ongoing issue with Nintendo's online infrastructure, because it was so hard to get all three of us in a match, and thankfully you can change your equipment now when you're all in the same lobby, but which makes it a little easier once you're in. But it's just like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, where it's like, if you want to play against other people, so not in a private match, you're basically reduced to having one person join, having the two other people join on them, and just wait really until you have openings, which could be a couple games until everyone's together. And then once you are together, it's no guarantee you're on the same team, and I can see the benefit of that, and I'm actually not bothered by that point necessarily. You could do league play, but then you have to have 4 people. So and we only have the 3. And heaven forbid we voice chat with one of our other friends to get them online and play with us.
Nintendo just wants you to go get Triforce Heroes. Just they go back to
you know what?
We've made a 3-person game. It's called Triforce Heroes.
We have something just for you. It's a delightful game with your boy Link. He's at it again.
Super great.
Did you play that game?
Oh,
it's so fun. It's such a great
one of my I think that's in my top 5 on the 3DS, and I played a lot of 3DS
that is
games.
Crazy, but I do really like the game.
And here's the reason why. I know this is a huge tangent,
best. I'll be cutting this entire segment.
It just does something that's super unique, and
it is.
Was like, this is fantastic. I'm dungeon crawling with 2 other Links. And
no, it was totally fun. The thing that didn't click with me is because I wanted to be the economy of the game was my one trouble with it, because I wanted to because you had to kind of get the piece of loot, which is fun to get the outfits, but you had to really grind.
My last statement, not my top 5 per se, but definitely in my top 5 of
it's your top 5 for a hot take. You choose 5 things that are off the grid. For sure, it's on their 1, 2, and 3.
Enjoyment, something that I've looked back fondly of. There are only a couple games I'm like, oh yeah, that was really cool. What it did.
Yeah, I had a neat experience where I went to the Zelda Symphony when they were in Portland.
Right.
And a Symphony of the Goddess for one of the maybe the second.
Yeah, I was just there a couple months ago here in Chicago.
Oh, so excellent! It's such a great time.
Amazing.
Although it's an interesting thing that the crowd was it doesn't matter, but the all good, but a lot of cheering and hollering, and I'm like, all right, I am at the Symphony. God damn it! But
close your damn mouth.
Pika. But I think we can get away with that. But basically, for that, I had a fun experience because the Triforce Heroes, when I went, had come out that weekend or that week or whatever.
Oh, did they include it, or just people?
And they
were
did.
there?
They did do a little promo for it. I don't think there was music for it, but they did a video type thing and made a little spiel about you can buy now. But what was fun though is because there were other people there with the 3DS, and I made a couple buddies there who I still occasionally communicate with. And we played Triforce Heroes.
Are they listening to
which
the podcast?
Was so fun. And they are one of our 14 listeners. Come on out now, my boy 8-Bit. Anyway, it was super fun, and that was a great way of experiencing it. You had to have other people though, but it was fun when that happened. So that's our Triforce Heroes cast. Okay, that is the end of Big End of the News. Tell us a little bit about your going to PAX.
All right, so I went to PAX this last weekend visiting some friends, but because PAX was happening and they were super interested in going, I was also super interested in going, and we made it happen. Never been to a PAX before. Was never, always interested when I lived on the West Coast. Attending PAX West up by you, not necessarily by you, but much closer to you.
Me. Right.
Up there in Seattle.
But it's for you're in foggy Boston town, Boston Harbor. Driving down to the tee off. It
was actually snowy Boston when I was there. That's another story.
Yes. I believe the Boston Massacre took place in snow when a young person threw a snowball at a British officer. Yep.
So for those who, PAX is a ton of game developers, but not just video game developers, right? I spent a good chunk of my time meeting board game developers and buying a few board games.
No, I didn't know that. No way! What'd you pick up?
So I picked up a small deck building game called Sushi Go by Game Right, or I think it's called Game Right.
Okay. King D will get us on the corrections. No worries. I
definitely probably will. Same folks who created Tower or Mystic Tower. Oh God, I'm butchering all of it.
That's all right. You picked some board. Okay, that's very cool.
Same guy who created Pandemic works for this. Has made some games for this group. But anyway, so aside from those board games, I was out there playing games from indie developers mostly. For one, I played a lot of Lightfall. Lightfall was the first game I played for. It was just recently announced in the Nintendo or in the most recent Indie Direct, and that was really cool. It was a tiny booth, 2 TVs, 1 Switch, 1 PlayStation 4. I thought I was in line for 2 Switches. Got handed a PlayStation 4 controller.
That's all right. Not bad. DualShock 4, not a bad controller.
Right. Not a bad controller at all, but just a little bit of dang it. I was hoping to try this out here.
Right.
Anyway, still a little buggy, and the developers were very honest about that and upfront, hey, this is still kind of a beta version of this game. There's definitely bugs we're working out.
That's awesome.
But check it out. Have a good time.
These are all features, and this is the way it is. And pre-order today.
Actually, they were giving out a lot of the games a lot of the Ninny games that were also featured on Steam all had 10-15% discounts on them if you pre-order them.
Oh, that's really cool.
But not
that's
on
neat.
Switch, which was a big bummer.
I know. That is a bummer.
Anyway, so got to play Lightfall. This is the game with platformer, lots of dark colors, but it had the not companion cube, excuse me, but it had the cube or the square there that you're constantly using to platform. I actually interviewed one of the developers, which I will post after this as kind of a separate standalone mini cast, I guess.
Yeah, that is so neat. And I love that you did that. We've already talked about it quite a bit.
Right.
Just kind of repeat myself, but
definitely try to do a little bit more. Didn't get a chance, but I'm definitely going to try to make sure this happens more in the future. It was very
really
great.
I mean, I don't know much about the game, and you have more experience than I, but I will say this: just seeing what I have seen for the game and watching the trailer, not the visuals, as you've mentioned, are really striking. And I like that and the contrasts and the deep blacks and everything that are on display. It does look like it has a fun, really neat look to it, almost kind of Journey-ish, obviously 2D elements. But the point being I'm trying to get to is that the music, I'm sure that's harder to come across at PAX, but
they gave
the music in the trailer.
Oh, music's great in the trailer, and it was just as much so in the demo.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
We had a full set of headphones on. It works perfectly with the aesthetic of the game. Really it's a great platformer. It was super fun. Just like the 2 levels we played. And the mechanic of having that cube generate. Now, it's not it doesn't like nerf the game, right? It doesn't make it just like super easy to run through because the cube itself had certain limitations, and I can't go into like too much of the limitations because some of it I didn't really quite understand, but I do think it's it's around collecting certain powers throughout the game, which make the cube a little bit more accessible in certain moments. But it was super addictive. I could see myself playing through it, and it's definitely going to look phenomenal on the screen. So definitely check out the
if nothing else, watch the little
interview.
Trailer.
I'm gonna link their trailer to the interview.
That is really cool, Matt, that you put the effort in to get that, which I think is awesome. Right. And again, like you're mentioning, it'll be in a separate podcast we'll put out both on YouTube and into the feed when we get going. But that is really cool. So it's neat that they took the time to chat with us, which is very cool.
Briefly, you mentioned Dark Souls, Wolfenstein. You kind of just briefly just touched on some of those Switch games that were announced at PAX. Nintendo had their own booth. The way they set it up was Sony, Microsoft completely open. They had lines, but lines to a specific game that they were featuring. In their booth, you could still walk around their booth, interact. There's a lot of Sea of Thieves stuff. Actually, they partnered with Chips Ahoy.
Yes, I actually saw that because some of my buddies are texting because I'm really enjoying Sea of Thieves as an aside, and I was like, "Oh, ahoy, mateys!" Because I have purchased. So I'm also very into Destiny, and there was like a Red Bull thing.
Okay.
And let me tell you, Papa tried a little Red Bull for that one. Got those codes for
I have
3xXP.
Tons of Sea of Thieves branded Chips Ahoy in my backpack still.
If you truly do and you have some codes to share, please send them to one delightful co-host because I would.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so great, right? So I'm walking around those thinking, oh, awesome. Run to the Nintendo booth, obviously, first thing. First thing I see on the side is a giant screen with 8 stations for Splatoon tournaments and ARMS tournaments. And it was awesome to see that. Yeah. Right when I showed up, there was a Splatoon tournament going on featuring announcers, and they had with Splatoon you can set up a local party, and there's a special feature where you can actually do kind of the overhead view of the match built into the game. And they were featuring that on the TV, so you were seeing people play from a bird's eye view of the whole thing, not just following everyone at one time. It was so fun to watch. People were getting super into it. Obviously, there were other booths with like multiplayer things going on that were way more packed, but definitely there was even a Nintendo chant that broke out at the thing. It was really cool. But
the chant was like Mario. What did they go for? What was the chant?
It was Nintendo.
Mario is Super Mario Bros. 3 commercial.
Right.
That is. So that's amazing.
The unfortunate part about it was Nintendo super exclusive. Their play area was completely walled off, and you had to get in line and wait in line so that you could then have a like extended amount of time in this booth where there were tons of stations for all the games that they had there, including Wolfenstein, Dark Souls, Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze. It was in like a horseshoe, but the top of the horseshoe that would have been opened was gated off, and
we
had
know
people,
horses well enough. That's fine.
Right. You know,
The old, heeled hoof. You know how it is.
And so that was unfortunate because they cut off their line super quickly because they really were like, hey, we want to give everyone a good amount of time to be in this space to be able to go to every game. And that was kind of like, oh, it's great if you're on the inside. Not great if you're like, I just wanted to try Donkey Kong. You couldn't just try Donkey Kong. You had to wait in line so that you could have the opportunity to try them all. That being said, I was in positions where I could see very clearly the games being played that were close enough to the edge of the horseshoe, including Dark Souls, Wolfenstein, and Donkey Kong. And they all looked phenomenal. Donkey Kong, I saw someone playing on the handheld version as well, and that looked great. But Dark Souls looked fantastic. I know
that's the interesting thing. I've been listening in on some various other podcasts and everyone's impressions of people who had played it, and the general consensus. Some people are citing the technical limitation, and that is certainly legitimate. If that is a concern, the original Dark Souls did run at 30, so that is the same. But now we are obviously it's been a few years since that's come out, and so you're kind of having that experience again. But I will say it is neat that they've managed to take, since the announcement of these games a few months ago, that both these and really position them as like almost kind of marquee Switch titles. Like, it's a big deal that Dark Souls is there, and honestly, the Dark Souls remastered and the press it got with our fiery chibi and whatnot, it still stand out as like, really, when you think of it, it's almost like I'm thinking of Dark Souls remastered as a Switch game, and that's a big success for Nintendo to have that kind of branding on these third-party titles, because obviously, it goes without saying that Nintendo's always had third-party struggles, and it's always been a big concern, and they've really nailed it with these. And I've heard, even for Wolfenstein, it's a newer game than Doom is, both in terms of its other console release and this one, but I've heard it looks even better. It's going to have those motion controls that people adore on the Doom version of Switch, which I've not played, which is so cool, and that it looks great. And it's just, that is awesome. And it's awesome people are excited about it, even with the caveat of, well, it's not quite the show, maybe technical showcase in the traditional sense, but it is a technical showcase in the portability and the fact that this thing runs on our magic little device, and that is really neat. And it's cool. People are so excited about it because a lot of takes I've heard of people saying like, "Hey, I am going to get the Switch version because I want to take it on the go," and you can't understate that. And that is super exciting for when that comes out in May.
Right, and I think that's what just standing there watching them and looking at them. That was all what was running through my mind was, I want to play these in my my armchair, looking down on my
in the library of my home, in my armchair, and fire that I some stuff for it. But seriously, that is
so I played a few other games, but two I want to mention were are two indie titles that I have my ears perked up for when they were first announced. The next one was Just Shapes and Beats.
That's really neat.
From Berserk Studio.
And I think we talked a little bit about this in the Indies one.
We did. And I was very excited for it, but it was a spectacle. And by that I mean they had they had a couple locations. I think they had a demonstration going on in the Nintendo booth, and they also had their own outside of it. And they had they had all these speakers set up. It was like a rave, techno show that you were at. It was it made you want to jump and move around. Sure. And the songs were awesome. The gameplay just looks super fun. I was kind of hard to kind of understand what you are, but you're basically these just little shapes trying to dodge
just shapes. Another Nintendo podcast, just shapes. It does. It looks almost like a shmup a little bit, like a shoot 'em up. There's things flying at you all the time. You're kind of constantly evading and weaving between, and
just the music is coming at you. So and you can't really anticipate.
It has just the shapes and beats.
And beats, yeah. I would say we got beat here. Just those two things.
That is really cool. It does look really, it looks like something worth checking out.
And
particularly the Switch.
Definitely check it out. I'm thinking there's going to be some sort of like demo where you get to play like one of the maps, or one of the songs. If that is the case, do it. Please do. You will turn up your speakers and just enjoy this cool rhythm game.
Yeah.
Finally, on the very last like hour that I was on the show floor and it was going to be open, I was walking through the Xbox booth. Definitely was looking into Sea of Thieves at the time, and turned the corner, and there was like 5 screens with some indie titles on them. Right there before my eyes was Wargroove.
And that is so beautiful. When you sent me this text message, I was very jealous, and also it looked so good, even from your photo of a screen a foot or two away. It just looks excellent. So you get your mitts on that one?
Yes. So I had to wait behind 2 individuals who I had to kindly ask to give me time because they were like thinking they were gonna play a full like.
Right, they're gonna play through the campaign. No worries, they paid for their ticket.
I was like, hey, I'll would love to jump in. And they were kind, let us jump in. We returned the favor to the next group, who was probably the last people to play it, just because the show 4 was closing. But beautiful, if you've seen a little bit of this game, the way it pops in HD on that screen was like. It just made me want it all the much more.
I know, because we've never had that for Advance Wars, which is where they're filling that gap.
It was super colorful, or at least 1, 2, and 3, not 4. 4 was dark and gritty and weird.
Days of Ruin, please listen. Let's not have. I'm sure King D will get me on Days of Ruin being pretty good.
The color. Love the gameplay.
Well, you know what, buddy? It's not sounding like you do. First of all, you love Triforce Heroes. Now
Nintendo had a choice in Smash Brothers. Do we include the cute little sprites from the first
this is very true. Yeah, you know what? Touche. You got me there.
Right.
Now the line in the sand.
That being said, I think that's the game I need to like go back and revisit. But Wargroove came across instantly. That nostalgia hit me of like the bright colors, just being able to go through and play the game a little bit. It was very fun. The one thing I didn't get a chance to do was tinker with some of the settings. One of the things you may do with Fire Emblem, or have done in the past with games like this, especially from intelligent systems, was speed up the movements. I need to play this game faster than it was letting me. And I really hope that's a feature. I think it will come out, but overall, I did get to use.
The attention to detail seems there. I would imagine it has to be.
And they're trying to make this a pretty robust package, so I gotta believe it's going to be in there. I kind of want to tweet at them with a picture like, "Hey, I played it. Will this be in it?"
I'm sure it will be. I would even say like they also made announcements we talked last, or at least expanded upon. But the fact that the game Wargroove is going to have the asynchronous multiplayer.
Which is going to be so cool.
Is so cool. I mean, it's also just a great way for Switch. Like, you might have that during a trip and connect to the Wi-Fi of the, hotel or what have you, and just play a couple moves. Like, that's so neat.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how that's going to work on the Switch. Like, is your Nintendo app going to ping you saying that, hey, someone's made their turn? I really hope
so. That's actually a great point, because I was talking with a buddy of mine about this very thing. He's also excited for it, and I'm like, this is so cool, but it would be nice. It almost makes me yearn a little bit for Wargroove on mobile. I still obviously want it on Switch because I want the buttons and the similarity between Advance Wars, and I would prefer it.
Words with Friends, Ticket to Ride.
But I do need the notification. That is the one concern, because my Switch is only connected on Wi-Fi if I'm home, because if I take it with me, barring I'm at a friend's place or I'm sleeping somewhere and I want to hop on to, it's so rare that I would.
And this could be cool if you're traveling, that's one thing. If you're at home and your friend's at home, and you got like you and I, we got our different jobs going on, but I will stop in the middle of the day if I can to maybe make a move. If I've got my Switch lying around where at work where I've got Wi-Fi here all the time.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, so that's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, because currently there is no notification system on the Switch outside of the little one now, where it's like your friend is online and playing this thing.
Oh, man.
Besides that, there's no way to get
this so leads into the last topic I wanted to talk about, but we can
take it away. Take it away now. The only other thing we're going to talk about is Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, which is cool that Funky Kong Edition is coming to the Switch. Did you play Tropical Freeze? Let's just hit that really fast.
I did. Did not beat it. It's actually the only game on the Wii U I bought and did not complete.
Well, that's impressive, because I buy a lot of things and don't beat them. But I did beat it, And because I am an MLG pro gamer, as we all know,
Right.
and my KD was incredible in that game. And, but I did play all the way through it with one of my college buddies, and we had a great time. So it's very cool people can re-experience it. It's cool the Funky Kong thing exists, although I do wish, I know the Funky Kong exists as an easy mode. It would be neat for people who have played it. That doesn't really do anything. I feel like that is my one critique. It's coming. I'm so glad it is, but like, for people who, again, have not, but like Mario Kart 8 DX, right? Deluxe, or Pokken Tournament DX, like those games added things that were meaningful for people who've played it. So like, I want to play these things again because like, I want to play as all these characters that just came out in arcades in Japan for Pokken, or I want to play as the Inklings and have battle mode on the Switch version.
They're definitely banking on this fact that like, very few people bought this game.
I just feel like Donkey Kong, in this case, is going the opposite direction, where it's like, if you did not pick it up because you were nervous it was too hard, now is a reason to get it. And I would be surprised, except for those of us who are very diehard and have weak constitutions when it comes to buying things, like myself, who's to say might end up with it again. But like, that does not entice. It would be neat if there were something else, and the game is already hard, so it's not like I need like a super hard mode, but what if there were another Kong in it that played slightly differently or approached situations with a slightly different movement puzzle, like a Tiny Kong or things like that, Candy or something, and then I don't really want that, but something like that, and then you had to play through it differently. That would be interesting enough to revisit. Cranky is like totally fun in Tropical Freeze because he's a new character on top of the ones who were in Donkey Kong Country Returns in the Wii. So it would be nice to have that taken in a way that wasn't just an easy mode, but still cool. It's coming. But Matt,
it's still gonna be on there.
Hit us with this notification.
All right. So finally, being at PAX, I did make the decision ultimately not to bring my 3DS, and that was a huge mistake. Always a huge mistake if you're going to any convention. Reason why is
if you step out of the house,
everyone's got their 3DSs there, and if you are a proud 3DS owner, I mean, I just checked my 3DS the other day. I think I have something like 3,000 Mii characters that like through Street Pass. But that's my point I'm making. Street Pass. Nintendo decided to build this into this console, to this handheld, and it was a simple yet just phenomenal way to bring the Nintendo community together before there was Miiverse, on this thing, which there still is, even though there isn't. Like, the icon is there.
It's true. All these things are like Nintendo Video or like Nintendo like Pause, or it's like all these like shells of features, so you can still have like the swap note on there. It's like, just because we removed it because
that was such a bummer when they.
It was such a bummer. I loved using that thing. I had a story on that one, but totally. It is true. In any event, continue.
So the 3DS problem, right, is, and and this kind of came up recently because in the last podcast, you almost had me on the verge of buying a new 2DS.
I'm not confident we got you off of it.
Still there, still right there. And I was kind of grew sad that like, this 3DS is kind of at the end of its life. But yet here are all these people with their 3DSs out everywhere. I think for every Switch I saw 10 to 15 3DSs. And,
wow, that's so cool.
And it was awesome. And not just like, I saw original 3DSs. I saw the new 2DS. I saw the new 2DS Pokeballs. I saw just every variation and iteration,
which is something you don't really get with the Switch either. Although it is cool, there's different colored Joy-Con, but beyond that,
but you saw the same ones, right? I saw people with my exact Joy-Con setup. You do at conventions like that get to see some like pretty swanky like people who've sent them in and got them painted or whatever their Joy-Cons, right? But anyways, here I am with my Switch that I can't do anything with. I can't do any unless I bring people like together to play Mario Kart, which I had an opportunity to, and the people didn't want to. They were playing their own like other game. I saw more people playing while waiting in line, playing Ellen DeGeneres's iPhone game over their Switch.
It's hard. I mean, that's still, we talked about this before, and I was going to bring it up earlier, but it's like the Switch was always positioned as a
home console, right?
And then we were kind of like, Nintendo, is it a pillar thing, yada yada. But no, it really is not the handheld, and you do feel it. I love the 3DS. I play it more on the Switch at the moment because I'm really into the Dragon Quest phase, but I just, in general, play it just as much as I play the Switch. And, each trip I kind of choose one or the other just because I can only bring so many things. But, like, whenever I don't bring the 3DS, it's always... I miss it. It's fun to even take a flight, and I still occasionally run into someone or, like, have that kind of weird experience or the exchange or add a state or a country onto the map. And my sister, I got a 3DS, and we play, and she still plays hers actively, and she's always like, oh, did you bring it? We got a Street Pass? And it's like, you do miss that community feature. And I love the Switch, but it's not something, partly because it feels like a nicer electronic, which is a compliment to the Switch.
Right.
But it's
like,
I don't want to just, like, it's a little larger, just take it out wherever willy-nilly. The battery is not quite as robust, like, whereas the Switch or the 3DS has that portability and that comfort level and that form factor that really complement.
It's just it's just disappointing in that, like, it's very obvious the Switch is this is the future Nintendo is moving in right now. Of course, we don't know if there are plans to bring a successor to 3DS out there. If there is a plan for a smaller, completely portable device, which I argue there should be because this, I don't know, this feature, if Miiverse is going to be gone, and we could talk about Miiverse all day. This was the feature before Miiverse that began to connect people together in the Nintendo community. Right. It's still being used to this day, and I would love to see something like it was sad to see it go.
Right, and it grew with all these great Street Pass games, and there's so many puzzles, and it's sad the puzzles like truncate at the end at like like a Yokai Watch and like a Superstar Saga-ish or Paper Jam or something like that. It's like, oh, why? Like, it's so sad to see those stop. They're so fun and so vibrant, and the things are always being down. Like, every time I open it up, it's like I have a Spot Pass notification because one of my games got an interesting update, and I have a Street Pass notification because some rando I passed has
loved it.
A copy of Kid Icarus, and I got an item or whatever, like, or Fire Emblem. I'm constantly getting people in my castle to play. I'm like, please turn off these notifications. But it's so neat, and like it's neat in a way that no other piece of gaming hardware has ever achieved, and right at the moment looks like will ever achieve again. It's something where it's like the interconnectivity of the 3DS is so fundamental to its core prerogative and design. The thesis of 3DS is a handheld device that can seamlessly interact with your friends when you are with them, whether it be multiplayer for a Smash or Mario Kart, but also in this interesting social feature that is fundamental to the way in which the system interfaces with one another and wants you to engage with other people, which is that personal level. It's not the same thing as creating, a 3DS account.
Right, it's just completely separate experience.
And Miiverse kind of bridge the gap, but it's like, it's its own thing. It's isolated onto this handheld, but you're constantly finding new ways to engage and interact with people by having it with you,
and that's my problem, right? Because it's such a great concept,
so cool,
that I think is worthy of moving forward, or evolving into something more.
I don't even know. I know, and it's like when we have the Labo announcements, we learn like, wow, the Switch can do like X, Y, and Z. Like, it has this motion sensing, it had the IR sensors, like, so has that great depth of field to it. Like, it can move, the Joy-Con can animate to car. Like, that's so neat. But
there's
there is not
no
any
feature
type
to
of
tell
that
you I've passed another Switch owner.
And,
you know how cool that is?
I know, and that is cool. Like, it's fun to pass someone and figure out like what it's on the friends list thing. It wasn't really super well implemented, honestly, in Street Pass, but like, I love it's so because the Switch and a 3DS do not have like an achievement system, right? There isn't a great way of showing off what you play or what you
outside
love
of joining friends and
itself,
you forcefully having to go in and check what they've been playing. Yeah.
Right, and you can play what they're playing on the Switch, but even that's limited, and it's not, as someone who owns a lot of Switch games, I know that it isn't a full list, It's only like the most recent things. And so it's like, but even with that said, like, so you don't have achievements and trophies do have a way, allow you to say like, I love this thing, look at all these things I've unlocked in it. And I like, some part of me is like, you know what, I enjoy the fact Nintendo doesn't have it because it can be a driving factor for me in a way that sometimes is negative. But I like being able to say my 3DS, like, my favorite game is Metroid Fusion on there, which is like cool for me because it's one of the ambassador games, but also I love Metroid, and that's a pick where I'm like, that's totally personal to me. And when I have that type of a little more ability to have those social features. Run into someone, say a funny phrase, wear a hat that's an original Game Boy because I love Game Boy. It just adds this little personalization and a statement about you that right now the Switch is just pretty barren.
Right.
It's just kind of devoid of
any kind of like just level of creativity. How do I make this system that I want to take places feel more like my little custom device outside of the modular controllers, right? Like
I just don't know that it
but it
can
should
at the moment.
It should, and
I wish it did,
I'm stressing that like I think it needs to, right? Like I want first of all just give us some themes for Christ's sake.
I know, seriously. White and black, baby. It's all you get. Theme menu.
It's
like
so
rude to see it
rude.
on there. It's like, don't give me the theme menu when this is all that's there. It's like the worst tease.
It should have just been like
anything on there.
Dark mode, and that should have been it should have been like
right, exactly.
Right.
Nighttime reading mode. This is
That's
our
it.
dusk mode. Yes,
but no, it's there, and it just feeds into my feeling that like there's so much potential on the Switch to make it make it more of an experience. We just talked about Nintendo trying to figure out how do we do more than just play games with this console? Like, how do we like engage people in different ways? And Labo's a good way of of what we've been seeing coming from the company so far. But I want to when I log into my Switch, I get disappointed. I'm like, I just like have to click the icon to start playing a game. Like I want to do more. I want to do more things.
Yeah, I do want to. Right. I want to play around a little bit. Like there is some fun to booting the PlayStation, which I don't think is the most elegant like cross media bar thing, but it is kind of fun to be like, what are my buddies doing? And I like look at them and I'm like, okay, like oh cool, my friend is still playing Monster Hunter World. Like I click on it and I see like, oh, he has like this recent trophy. He's really achieved this or like this person's playing this thing. I'm like, oh, that fell off my radar, or I forgot about that, or there's like all these little ties into each other. It's something. It'd be nice to have the Switch get have more elements that are like that and more personal than the PlayStation example. Something close, more akin to the 3DS. A way to engage and to collect. Video games ultimately are about collecting. I mean, that's the whole point of the game. Whether you collect a completed story or you catch them all, like that is fundamental to most games. Is like that desire to want to complete and collect. And the 3DS really recognized that, and it would be. I don't know how. I think they would have to get creative because the technology does not seem like it's there. But Nintendo, they are masters at being creative with the technology they have. Maybe it's an accessory. Maybe it's one of our USB-C accessories where something you put on there, just like back for Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green on the Game Boy Advance, came with that wireless adapter that allows
you don't think it's built in? Like you don't think it's just near like?
I don't know. I don't think it's not.
It's like an update. They can just firmware update to the Switch where they're like, hey, like you can now communicate.
Because I think it's a piece of. I mean, I don't know. I would imagine it's a piece of hardware that's some type of extended near-field communication that the Switch does have. The Amiibo support, so it has some type of functionality that's a little bit like that, I suppose, but it's not you press it up against the right thumbstick. It's a short range. I gotta think they don't have something like that unless there's some way to like kind of ad hoc the Wi-Fi system, like the PSP, where you could utilize basically the networking of each individual. So maybe it is, but there is no sign of it, and I'm doubtful.
Right, and who knows what other iterations of Switch, if there are any, could bring. But I guess my point being was the 3DS is definitely on the way out.
The point was throw the Switch away. That thing is trash. Take your 3DS out. Take out the original one. Don't get none of those new. I don't need those C stick. Get that 3DS up there with those cake layers of like dark black, dark gray, lighter black. 3 layers on one 3DS with that dreadful blue aquamarine one. Get that out there, give it to everyone you know, and throw away your phone too, because you probably don't need that because it can't Street Pass, and take it for a ride, take it for a spin. It's been lovely.
I used to go hit up the hotspots, the 3D.
The local high school.
But here's the local high school. I work for a university, so in some of the offices I'd be in, I actually put a little Street Pass logo out in front of my door, and students would know to come by to consistently Street Pass with me.
Yeah, it's really cool. It was so exciting when that thing came out, and I would walk around campus and I put it. Just
no one's got it
and
yet.
I made friends.
For me, it was the first 2 months. I'm like
yeah.
the only kid on campus with a 3DS. So I went to the.
Well, that was the thing. There were so few, but I would encounter one of my when our routines would kind of match up in the quarter. These people, and I would start to recognize them because I was like, I know I'm encountering them at some point today, and I would see them playing. We'd talk and be like, what are you playing? But it'd be so fun to be like, wow, that person's Star Fox 3DS. Like I just bought that. Like you know, that's the most recent played game. Like their most recent played game is
they're
System
wearing
Preferences,
that
but it was like
cool.
so neat because. And it's like, yeah, and then I'll be like, I need them for Find Me. And it's like, oh, finally a yellow shirt, electricity damage. Like, go break that shield. Like, that was so cool. And, like, it created a community. 3DS launched, and it was like, had a really hard time getting out of the gate.
That price drop was great.
Until Mario Kart 7, until the price drop, and Mario Kart came out, and Monster Hunter on 3DS, and to kind of as a coup de grace against the Vita. Then it picked up, but that took like a year. And it was slow at the gate, but it did have that little club and that community, and the Switch could do it too, and it just does not. Even Miiverse on the Switch would be
exactly, and that's what I mean. There needs to be an evolution of this social feature that they've experimented with on 3DS, they've experimented with now on the Wii U, and they see that the community is there and wants this, and
they love it. People mourned the passing of Miiverse, and they downloaded all their files and. You know, I gave one last like fond look to it
before took a screenshot.
Before I packed it all up, and I was like, yeah, exactly. Like all these fun things, like when I got New Super Mario Bros. U, and it was Christmas when that piece of tech came out in 2012, I think, and King D let us know. And when I was on there, and it was like, look at all these fun hints I was dropping off about like use the baby Yoshi or like things like that about like jokes about like the levels and strange stamp collections that my buddies and I put when we cranked our way through Super Mario 3D World, and we were like, my buddies were all making comments about Rosalina and Peach were keeping it locked in that game, and just like and there was all these fun stickers, and we were putting these goofy quotes that we had said like into the Miiverse to be saved, or the one time I got a slap on the wrist from the Nintendo account people because I put a puzzle solution for Wind Waker in one of the bottles, and they're like, do not spoil the fact that the moon is the big pale thing in the sky, and I could never delete it, so it was always like this terrible like getting written up by Nintendo moderators for it. But I was very impressed that they like caught that as like, oh, this boy's really trying to cheat the system.
Yeah, well,
no
to them
being
here. Completely absent in the last like 10 hours of the Miiverse, where it just like turned to complete debauchery. That was great. But,
I love that.
So, and this is what I'm saying, right? Is that the 3DS, people are going to go to conventions or group things for years, and they are still going. You're going to see the 3DS will live on through this feature, because I don't know that their puzzles are being updated, but people still have a lot of gameplay left in some of those Street Pass features that are out there, and
they're cool.
It's
There's
great,
so many.
and I love it. It's kind of like in like the Smash community of like still holding on to their GameCube Smash Brothers, but not. Mm-hmm. I think this is going to be the case with the 3DS. We're going to see it being the console of choice at these major conventions and at big things.
Honestly, the fact that it's still around. Even I was at Portland Retro Gaming Expo a few months ago. It was so fun, and 3DS is everywhere. And like you said, all the personal customization and colors, and people playing all different iterations of them. And there was a meet and greet, and people are bringing them to that, and it's just awesome. It's so cool. I like just put my 3DS in the car, even where I parked, and I came back to tons of Street Passes. And Street Passes that even in the past past 2 years, they extended the number of people you can encounter and cleared at 10, and like it's still prime for that. And I think the Switch not having it was just a matter of getting it out the door more than anything. The same way the whole user interface is like really pretty, again, barren, but like I would love to see it come back and challenge on Nintendo to do it.
Now, and so it made me sad to think about maybe this is the last time we'll see something like this, but also hopeful that Nintendo realizes that there's a lot of stock in these types of features on their consoles, and the community is out there, and that it's a.
I think the fact that the themes are teased and obviously going to happen, I think the fact that they have been adding avatars gives me a little hope that they're paying attention to these small, somewhat
We'll see. We will see this summer,
features.
Hopefully with the iteration of this whole online service. So, otherwise, that's my
Matt, that was a great topic to end it with. Let's close it out here for another Nintendo podcast, episode 0.6, the one where Matt went to PAX. Thank you so much for those of you who have made it through the entire length of the episode. Once again, way too long, but super fun. And also, please do keep an eye out for the upcoming podcast and YouTube video that Matt will post and kindly edit for us, as he's done a great job on all these doing that, for the interview with Bishop Studios for Lightfall when it comes to the Switch soon, and his experience talking to them at PAX, which is so cool. And thanks to them again for taking the time to do that. And thank you, Matt, for putting that together. And again, that sweet content for King D to listen to. So with that, I'm going to play us out. Any last words from you, Matt?
Let's jump into it.
Okay.
I think we are.
We're jumping in.
Stay fresh.